Okay, this lesson is lesson 3.3. The lesson is on comparing and ordering rational numbers. And notice it says page 1 because there is also a page 2. So we have 2 pages of notes today. We are going to be comparing and ordering rational numbers. What that means is comparing means we're going to use the greater than, less than symbols, the inequality symbols, to tell which fraction is greater or less, or which decimal is greater or less. Or sometimes you'll have a fraction and a decimal, and you have to figure out which one is greater and which one is less, okay? Ordering rational numbers, very much like when we ordered integers, we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So we will put decimals in order from least to greatest, or fractions in order from least to greatest, or sometimes you'll have a mix of fractions and decimals. So when we say ordering rational numbers, remember rational numbers are all the numbers, positives, negatives, zero, and fractions and decimals. So how do we put fractions and decimals in order from least to greatest? That is what we're going to learn today. I'm going to show you a presentation to explain a little bit more about fractions and decimals, and then we'll come back to our notes. Okay, so here is a number line, okay? Notice on the number line, right here, we have 0. Sorry, right here we have 0. Okay, on the number line, that's where our 0 is. And down here we have the number 1. So in between 0 and 1, we have all of these pieces. So down here is our first whole number. And now we're going to count how many pieces did we break up our first number. Now think about what I kind of think about is from 0 to 1. What if this was a candy bar from 0 to 1, a candy bar that fits in that space? If we put a line here and a line here and a line here and so on, we have broken the candy bar into 10 pieces. 1 piece here, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 pieces, right? So think about this like a candy bar, and these lines mean we cut it, and we're going to cut it into 10 pieces. When you cut something into pieces, you get a fraction or a decimal of the candy bar. And the pieces, how many pieces you break it into, you might break it into 5 pieces, you might break it into 2 pieces. But in this case, we broke it into 10 pieces. So the 10, because it's in 10 pieces, the 10 becomes the denominator in a fraction. So a denominator tells you how many pieces did we cut something into. And we cut this candy bar, we're pretending there's a candy bar here. We cut this candy bar into 10 pieces. That's what the denominator is. The numerator, the number on top, tells you how many pieces you have. If you are right here, you don't have any pieces. You have none of the candy bar, right? If you get this much of it right here, then you have 1/10. This much of the candy bar is 1/10 because each of these pieces is a 1/10. If you have both of these pieces, then you have 2/10. If you have all 3 of these pieces, then you have 3/10, and so on. So if you have all the way down here, let's say you have this, 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 and this, then you have 8/10 of the candy bar, okay? So the denominator, or the bottom number of a fraction, tells you how many pieces your candy bar or whatever it is was cut into. And then the top number tells you how many of those pieces you have. Now, you can also write pieces in decimals, okay? So that would look like this. The first place after the decimal is the 10th place. So just like this right here is 1/10, this piece is 1/10 of the candy bar, we would say this decimal is 1/10 because this number 1 is in the 10th place. So you have 1/10. This number 2 is in the 10th place as well, so you have 2/10. This number 3 is in the tenths place. The first place after the decimal is the tenths place. So if you have a 3 there, you have 3/10. So 3/10 as a fraction is equivalent to 0.3 as a decimal. That's the same amount of candy. It's just a different way to write it. Okay, let's look at another number line that's cut into a different number of pieces. What I'm trying to get you to see on this number line is how the fractions and decimals are the same thing, only represented in a different way. Okay, now let's look at a number line cut into 4 pieces. Okay, so if we're going to graph a point at 7/10 or 7/10, it would be right here. Okay, but let's look at a number line that's been cut into 4 pieces. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here's 0. Here's the first piece, that's 1 piece. Here's the second piece, that's 2 pieces. Here's the third piece, that's 3 pieces. Here's the fourth piece, and this is the number 1. Okay, so again, this would be 0/4 because we've cut this into 4 pieces. This would be 1/4 because we have one of the 4 pieces. This would be 2/4 because we have 1 piece, 2 pieces. This would be 3 of them, 1, 2, 3 pieces. And then last but not least, we have 4 out of 4, 4 pieces. 4 over 4 is 1. Okay, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So if you think about, remember I told you all fractions are division problems. So this is 1 divided by 4, 2 divided by 4, 3 divided by 4, 4 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 can fit into 4 one time. Well, if I do 1 divided by 4, I'm going to get a decimal. So the very common thing to think about with fourths is a dollar. Another name for 1/4 is a quarter. If you have a quarter of something, you have 1/4 of it. That is why this coin is called a quarter, because it is 1/4 of a dollar. How many cents or how many pennies or how much money is a quarter? It's 25 cents, right? How do we write that? 0.25. That means we have $0, no dollars, and 25 cents. Okay, 25 1/100ths. If there's 100 pennies make up this $1, a quarter is 25 pennies, 25 cents. 1 divided by 4 as a decimal is 0.25. So all of these are equivalent. 1/4 is the same as 0.25, which is a quarter. 1/4, 1/4. Quarters are the same as fourths. If we have 2 quarters, we have 50 cents, right? $0.50, 0.5. Okay, if we have 3 quarters, we have 75 cents. Again, $0.75. Okay, and again, if you divide 3 divided by 4, you're going to get the decimal 0.75. If you divide 2 divided by 4, you're going to get the decimal 0.5. Now, if we have 4 quarters, that's worth $1. That's 100 pennies or $1. 4 quarters is worth $1. Okay, so you would have 4 out of 4 pieces, and that would be $1. All right, so breaking things into fourths or quarters and breaking things into tenths, like we did on the last number line, those are very well-known decimals. Tenths and quarters, or tenths and fourths, are very well-known decimals. Okay, so look where these decimals and fractions land on the other number line if we bring back the tenths. Okay, there it is. Now you see the number line with the tenths with the number line with the quarters or the fourths. Notice where 0.25 lands in the decimals. It's right in between 0.2 or 2/10 and 0.3 3/10. So 0.25 or 1/4 is more than 0.2, but it's not all the way to 0.3. It's right in the middle. okay? And again, 0.5 lands right on 0.5, which is 2/4, which is the same as 5/10, okay? Now look where 0.75 lands. Here's 0.7 and here's 0.8. 0.75 lands somewhere right in the middle, okay? So these are very well-known fractions and decimals. Tenths and fourths are very well-known fractions and decimals. So this is a good thing to memorize, actually, that 1/4 is the same as 0.25 or 1/4. 2/4 or half, that's basically half, is the same as 0.5. So you can see we're right in the middle, that's half, okay? 3/4 is the same as 0.75, which is like 75 cents. And 4/4 is $1. And tenths are also well-known fractions and decimals, okay? And it's a very good idea to memorize those. If you are having a hard time understanding the idea of fractions and decimals as pieces, I recommend, if you want to watch this video again, all right? And just try to make sense out of the idea that fractions and decimals are the same thing. They represent pieces of a whole, okay? All right. So this problem right here is going to be in our notes. What it's asking us to do is put these rational numbers in order from least to greatest. Well, in order to put these on the number line and figure out which one is the least and which one is the greatest and what order they go in, we really need them either to be all decimals or we need them to be all fractions, because it's hard to tell when they're mixed up like that. All right, so that's what our notes are going to be about today. How to figure out what is the greatest and what is the least when you have a mix of fractions, decimals, positives, and negatives. See, this one's negative, right? So how can we put these in order? That is what we're going to work on in our notes today, okay? So back to our notes. Okay, here we go. To compare and order fractions and decimals, you can convert the fractions to decimals, or you can convert the decimals to fractions. You want to do whichever is easiest, and you want to do that so that the rational numbers are all in the same form, either the form of decimals or the form of fractions, okay? So let's talk about how do you convert fractions to decimals. To rewrite fractions with a denominator of base 10, try to do this. Try, if you can, if it's possible, you want to rewrite the denominator of a fraction as base 10, if possible, or rewrite the fractions with the denominator of 4 if possible. The reason is, if you can do a base 10 or do a base 4, then you will get those very well-known decimals. So if you can rewrite the fractions with the denominator of base 10, then you will get those well-known decimals, okay? So convert the fractions to well-known decimals, and then use a number line to write the decimals in order. So sometimes when we write the steps like this, you just start filling in the spaces because you don't really understand. Like, you wrote all that in, but what does it mean? So let's actually do these steps down here in the problem. So here's the problem that we had in the slide, right? We started out saying, in order to put these numbers from least to greatest, what we really want to do is change all of them to decimals or change all of them to fractions, whichever is easiest. In this case, I'm going to change the fractions to decimals. Okay, I'm going to convert the fractions to decimals, which is the steps here, convert fractions to decimals. I'm going to use these steps to convert these fractions to decimals. And the steps said, try to rewrite fractions with the denominator of base 10, if possible, or rewrite fractions with the denominator of 4, if possible. So 6/8 can be converted to a fraction that has a denominator of 4 because 8 is a multiple of 4. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to take 6/8 and I'm going to figure out how to reduce this fraction to lowest terms and get a base 4, denominator of 4 fraction. Okay? So in order to reduce fractions to lowest term, I figure out what is the greatest common factor. What is the greatest common factor of 6 and 8? 2. 2 is the greatest common factor of 6 and 8. So 2 times 3 equals 6, right? So those are factors of 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 and 4 are factors of 8. And 2 is the common factor. So I can simplify or reduce this fraction 6/8 to lower terms of 3/4, 3 and 4. Okay, so there it is. There is my denominator of 4 fraction. And remember from the slide, 3/4 means 3/4. And we know that 3/4 is 75 cents. So this decimal is 0.75. So 6/8 is the same as 0.75 as a decimal. Okay. Now let's do 3/5. 3/5 can be a base 10, right? We can convert this denominator to 10 because, again, 10 is a multiple of 5. So how would I do that? I could take 3/5, right? And I can multiply this times 2 and I can get 10. Now remember, if I multiply the bottom times a number, I have to multiply the top, right? If I do something to the denominator, I have to do the same thing to the numerator so that I have an equivalent fraction. So 3 times 2 is 6. So 3/5 is the same as 6/10. Now that we have a denominator of 10, we can convert that to a decimal. Because remember, 0.6, this place after the decimal is the 10th place. So I can put 6 in the 10th place and get 6/10. So now I have my numbers all in decimals. I know that 6/8 is 0.75 and 3/5 is 0.6. So here are the numbers I have, okay? I have 0.75, I have 0.5, I have negative 0.15, and I have 0.6. So now I can start putting them on the number line. So I just rewrote the numbers. 0.75, 0.5, negative 0.15, and then 0.6. Okay, now I can put them on the number line so I can figure out which one's least and which one is greatest. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to start with this negative one because I know that negative is to the left of 0 and it's the only negative, so I'm going to do that one first. So here is my 0. Now where the heck does 0.15 go? Well, I know that that 1 is in the 10th place, so I know that I need to go to 1/10, and then this 5, remember, is right in between 1/10 and 2/10. So let's count. This is the integer 1, negative 1, right? This is the integer negative 1. So let's count how many pieces we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these pieces are tenths. So if this is 1/10, this 1 right here, I know that's right here, 1/10, right? Or negative 1/10 because the number's negative. But it's not just 1, it's 1/5. And remember, if this is 0.1 and this is 0.2, 0.15 is right in the middle. It's right in between them. So I'm going to put that right there. And then I'm going to label it negative 0.15. All right. Again, if you need to rewind and watch that again to really understand it, please take your time and watch it as many times as you need to. All right, so we put that on the number line. Let's put 0.75. So that's a positive number. Remember, this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. But this is not just 0.7, it's 0.75. So I need to go right in between the 0.7 and the 0.8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that's 8. So I'm going to go right in the middle because this is not just 0.7, which means I would be right on this line, but it's not 0.8 either. It's right in the middle, 0.75. So I'm now going to label that 0.75. Okay. That's 75 100ths because that 5 is in the hundredths place. It's 75 hundredths. All right. So we did that one. Let's do 0.5 now. Well, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there on the 0.5. Okay, did that one. Now let's do 0.6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0.6. Now I can order them from least to greatest because I know this is the least, then this, then this, then this. Because I know the number line, the numbers get bigger as I go to the right. This is the smallest, then comes this, and this is the greatest. So now I can put them in order. So this one, negative 0.15 is first. Then 0.5. 0.5 is next. Then 0.6. 0.6 was my 3/5, so I'm going to write 3/5. Then last but not least, the greatest number on this number line is 0.75. That was my 6/8. So I'm going to put 6/8. So there would be the answer. If I have to put these numbers in order from least to greatest, this is the answer. Negative 0.15 is the least. Then comes 0.5. Then comes 3/5. And last, the greatest number is 6/8. Okay, that is converting your fractions to decimals, converting fractions to decimals so that you can put the numbers in order. Okay, on the next page, we are going to convert decimals to fractions because sometimes that will be easier. All right, sometimes you want to convert the decimals to fractions. All right, so we're going to use the place value as the denominator. When we start with a decimal, we use the place value of the decimal as the denominator. This should say then. I'm not sure why it says 1. Then use the number as the numerator. Okay, again, when we write the steps, sometimes the words don't make sense until you see it. Then what you're going to do is find equivalent fractions with common denominators. Okay, that's the second step. Again, these steps will make sense when you watch me do it. Then you order the fractions that have common denominators by comparing the numerators. Okay, so that's all of the steps in words. Let's actually do those steps in action now with a problem. Okay, so here is the problem. All right, here's the problem. It says we're going to order 1/12, 3 or 2/3, and 0.35 from least to greatest. But again, we have a mix of fractions and decimals. So we're going to convert them all to fractions because we only have one decimal. and the other two are fractions. So let's make this decimal a fraction, and then we'll have all fractions, okay? First step is to convert the 0.35 to a fraction. How do we do that? All right. The directions at the top said, use the place value as the denominator. So the place value, this 5 is in the hundredths place. This 5 is in the hundredths place. So I'm going to use the hundredths as the denominator, okay? Then the directions said, use the number as the numerator. Well, the number is 35, so I'm going to use the number as the numerator. So 0.35 is the same as 35 100ths, okay? This fraction can be simplified. So I'm going to try to use lowest terms, okay? I'm going to reduce this fraction to lowest terms. Remember, to do that, I'm going to find the greatest common factor for 35 and 100. Well, the greatest common factor for 35 and 100 is 5, okay? So 5 times 7 equals 35. The 5 and 7 are factors of 35. 5 times 20 is 100. 5 and 20 are factors of 100. So there's the greatest common factor right there, which means this fraction can simplify to 7/20ths. Okay, that is 35 hundredths in lowest terms. That's what we call that. It's still 0.35. It's all equivalent, okay? But now I can use this one, okay? I'm going to list this with my fractions in step 2. My fractions are 1/12, 2/3, and now 7/20ths. Those are my 3 fractions. So the step 2 is find equivalent fractions with common denominators. Okay, so again, how do we find common denominators? To find common denominators, we need to find the lowest common multiple of 12, 3, and 20. What is the lowest common multiple of 12, 3, and 20? Well, the multiples of 20 are 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, and so on. This is my biggest number, so this is where I need to start. So 20 is not a common multiple, because 20 is not a multiple of 12, and it's not a multiple of 3. 30 is a multiple of 20, and it's a multiple of 3, but it's not a multiple of 12, okay? So 20, 30, 40, 40 is not a multiple of 12, and 40 is not a multiple of 3. 20, 40, 60. 20, 40, 60. I said 30. 30 is not a multiple of 20. Sorry. 20, 40, 60. 20, 40, 60. 60 is a multiple of 20. 20 times 3 is 60. 20, 40, 60. 60 is also a multiple of 3 because 20 times 3 is 60. 20 is also a multiple of 12 because 12 times 5 is 60, okay? So we're going to use 60 as our common denominator, okay? So how do we do that? We're going to convert this fraction, 1/12, to a fraction with a denominator of 60. We're going to convert this fraction, 2/3, to a fraction that has a denominator of 60. We're going to convert this fraction to a fraction that has a denominator of 60. How do we do that? Well, we know that 60 is a multiple of all 3 of those fractions, or all 3 of those denominators. So let's start with 20. We know 20 times 3 is 60. So if we multiply the denominator times 3, we have to do it to the numerator. 7 times 3 is 21. So 7/20ths can be converted to 21/60 as an equivalent fraction. All right, now how do we get 3 to 60? Well, we multiply it times 20. 3 times 20 is 60. So we have to multiply the top times 20. 2 times 20 is 40. How do we get 12 to 60? Multiply it times 5. 12 times 5 is 60. We do it to the bottom, we have to do it to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. Now we can put them in order because all of the denominators are the same. So now remember, the denominator means how many pieces did we cut our candy bar in. We cut this candy bar into 60 pieces. That's a lot of pieces, right? They must be tiny little pieces, but there's 60 of them. Well, if you only have 5, you have the least, right? So this is the smallest number. Then if you have 40, you have the next, and well, no, 21 is next, and then 40 is the biggest, right? So next we order the numerators. Okay, so then we can write the numbers from least to greatest. So the first one is 5/60. Well, what is 5/60? 5/60 was our 1/12, right? So 1/12 is our smallest number in our list. Next comes 21/60. What was 21/60 in our list? 21/60 was 7/20. 7/20 was our 0.35. So the next number that we put in order is our 0.35. Last but not least, 40/60 is our biggest number. 40/60 was our 2/3. Okay, so now if you look at our problem, our original problem said order 1/12, 2/3, and 0.35 from least to greatest, and we just did that. 1/12 is the least, 0.35 is next, and then 2/3 is the greatest. So basically what we have learned in this video is how to convert decimals to fractions. And we do that in order to put numbers, rational numbers, in order from least to greatest. So we learned to convert decimals to fractions. We also learned how to convert fractions to decimals. So fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. Okay, back and forth, because fractions and decimals basically represent the same thing, just in 2 different ways. Okay,